All right, now let's go ahead and implement this API piece over here. And for that, what we are going to do is what I was saying is let's get started with this, startup.cs itself, and let's create this as startup.cs. You can stick to this existing program.cs and do your stuff, all the startup stuff in that program.cs itself. But I like this. This separation itself, and that's how I like to delegate its steps to its designated components. So it's not mandatory at all. If you guys like the minimal model of program.cs, you can just go ahead and stick to that, and let's do that. But I like this way, so there is not a problem with that. Even you can go ahead and implement this way itself. So let's go ahead and implement that. So we can start with the very basic one. And if you see this, what we used to have in that startup is like we used to inject this startup configuration via this constructor itself. So let's have that. And what we are going to have is, let's say, I configuration, and let's have this configuration in place, and then let's have this configuration. Let's create this guy, what we used to have, and yeah, and let's say this is rather than private read only, we used to have this a public one, so that it can be delegated nicely, right? And because it's going to be a startup thing, right? So is a scope is completely application wide, not something class wide. So there is no meaning of private read only stuff here, right? So that's why that is fine. And let's have one actually like this getter over here, right? So once we have this, right, so what we could do is we can start setting up this configure service, which we used to do that. So let's do that, public void, configure services, and let's go ahead and take this iService collection, and let's call this as services itself. Now let's go ahead and add the required dependencies over here. Let's say add controllers, and then we can add you know services dot add API versioning, which we are going to need that. So we need to add that dependency here. So let's go ahead and add certain dependency. So what we are going to need is, let's say, API versioning, or so for that let's have this embassy versioning, and API Explorer as well. And let's go to this manage NuGet package. Let's go ahead and look for this, and let's whatever is coming, let's install that. It's coming of version 5. This is interesting. And not sure why it's not migrated with .NET 6, or it might not be required. So that was I was telling, I haven't doing for .NET 7 right now. I'll just wait for some time, and then I'll migrate this every stuff on .NET 7. So now let's say add API versioning, and let's say whether it's, yeah, this is working fine. Now what other thing which we can have here is these are the certain basic stuffs, nothing to do with the clean architecture. This you might be doing already, and so that's what we are just setting up here. So now I'm just setting up this, wiring up all the things which we have done in the infrastructure section. So that is going to be the movie context, and that is going to take your uh, um connection string itself. So let's say m goes to m dot, and what you are going to use here, use probably SQL Server, and in that we are just going to have this configuration bit, and from this configuration, right, what we are going to do is, first of all, why this configuration is not okay. I should be having, let's because I have a habit of having configuration like this in a startup, right? So that's why I had the expectation on that, and it was not picking up, right? Now let's say get connection string, and let's call this something like let's take this down, movies connection probably would be the right nomenclature here. And once we have this, then we need to provide this. Let's give it a singleton itself. And now let's go ahead and add this swagger, right? And I think I have not added that swagger, so let's go ahead and add this swagger as well. And for that we are going to need this swaz buckle, and let's go ahead and implement that right into NuGet itself. Just first pull that swaz buckle ASP.NET Core, which you can see here, and this should be fine. Let's go ahead and install that. All right, so yeah, now let's do this way, swagger gen, and now c equals to c dot swagger doc itself, right? So what we can do here is like we can expand like this, and now here we can just mention that so c dot swagger, what happened, swagger doc, and in here we can specify all that, versions or new open API info, and let's give it a title, probably not volatile title, and that is going to take this object, I guess. And now let's give it a title, and let's give it a movie API review probably, and let's have a version, let's say probably v1 would be nice to have. And now this is okay. Now let's go ahead and add services.add automapper. So we might need this automapper as well. Install that. Yeah, and in that infrastructure thing where we have used that automapper, there we should have used this Microsoft dependency injection rather than doing that automapper itself. And let's add that. First of all, this automapper we have already added. Let's register that. Add auto mapper. What happened? It didn't come here. No, actually this as the Microsoft dependency injection, this is what actually needed. So now with that thing in place, I should be having an auto mapper in here. Now this is fine. Now here what I'm going to look for is this type of and startup. So this is going to scan all the assemblies, and then it is going to register that. So now let's go ahead and add mediator as well, and for that we are just going to need that, let's say one of the handler which we have used, let's say create movie command handler itself, right? And for this we can just get the type info, get type info, yeah, and let's pick the assembly for that. That way it should be fine, right? And let's, well, it's giving some error, let's check that. Alright, so we haven't installed mediator here. We could be needing this mediator thing here. Now let's take this extensions dependency injection over here, and it says what else? Actually this is deprecated. This is because we are using that 12 version here, so that's why it's, let's try this one, because ultimately it should have been with this extensions Microsoft dependency injection, and here we have used this reflection, so this is not needed. And now what I'm going to have is from this mediator itself, add mediator, and this mediator should have been coming from, now let's see from where it's coming. Alright, so what I have done here is like I have installed this Microsoft extension dependency injection for mediator, and that's why now it's registered. Although it's saying that it's deprecated, but we'll see that otherwise we'll work around this for something else. And if it is not supported, so what we need to do here is to downgrade the package of mediator from 12 to 11, and then we can stick to 11 itself. So because for mediator piece we are just going to need this delegation and stuff, like for commands to commands and to queries, and that's it. So let's finish this bit, and let's add other pieces as well. So here we are going to need that add scope, and we are going to need this iRepository, right? And for that we are just going to have this like type of we are just going to say that iRepository, and like this, and for that we are going to say that implementation will be also like this one, because its implementation is from repository itself, and that's what we are doing here. And then we are going to add this add probably transient, and in that case I movie repository, and let's have this movie repository self, and yeah, its implementation. So that's it. So this is all about configuring startup services, and in the next bit we are going to configure this bit, like to utilize this. So let's do that next.